Some viewers may find the following video disturbing. Viewer discretion is advised.
Welcome everyone. Today we're going to be talking about the Rite. This is the story of Annalise Michel. From our title, you can probably assume that our story is about exorcisms, and you're correct. In fact, the story that we're going to be discussing today is probably, in my opinion, one of the most disturbing cases of exorcisms I've ever read about. And normally, I don't really do stories of the supernatural, but because there's so many elements in this story that can be basically irrefutable, I couldn't really turn it away. And what really got me interested in this story is there was a film in 2005. The film I'm talking about is The Exorcism of Emily Rose. And I will have to say that this film is probably one of the most terrifying films I had ever seen in my life. The story is about a prosecutor who is basically investigating a case where the prosecutors are charging not only the parents, but two priests for negligent homicide. And what made it even more terrifying was finding out that this movie was actually based on actual accounts. And there's a certain scene in the movie that is pretty close to what actually happened in real life. And the more you read about the actual events of the actual lady of Annalise Michel, you realize the movie The Exorcism of Emily Rose is pretty spot on. And there's not much stuff that's in the film that was not documented in real life. The first cases of exorcisms we can probably read in different religious texts. And the word exorcism is from the ancient Greek, which loosely translates to binding by oath. And the whole prospect of an exorcism is a religious party when a person feels that another party member is possessed or an area is possessed, they will bring in a religious leader, mostly a priest of whatever religion, to expel demons, jinns, or other malevolent spirits that someone feels is inhabiting a body or place. The first accounts of exorcism started around between 1 to 3 AD during the birth of the Christian church. And the Catholic Church had their first documented exorcisms roughly around 15 to 1600s, during which the Catholic Church would also create a mandate, or basically a paper to go by to basically tell if a person was possessed or not. And over the years, they would update this multiple times. And by the 1950s, it had been so updated that the church really wasn't performing a lot of exorcisms. And a lot of things that the church would have to prove is that this was an actual possession, not a case of mental illness or any other ailments. And that there is going to play a huge role in our story later on. Annalise Michel was born on September 21st, 1952 in Western Germany. She would be born to a very fierce Roman Catholic family, Father Joseph Michel and Mother Anna Michel. And in this family photo right here, you can see Annalise Michel. She's in the top left in the flower dress. And I want you to look at this picture and just kind of have an idea of just the amount of trauma this girl went through during this period in time. This would be our starting photo of her. But I digress. As I said, the family was extremely fiercely Roman Catholic, and religion was just a huge part of their practices and lives. It is also said that the family would attend Mass twice a week. And part of their religious system or their faith system was they believed that one person could not atone for their sins. Or more or less, if someone was to forgive themselves of their sins, that person would have to commit a sacrifice to atone for that sin. And Joseph and Anna would make the children perform a lot of crazy rituals as a way to atone for sin. For example, if it was during the winter time, they would make their children lay on the cold, hard wood floor in the winter and just be in this state of prayer and fasting without any kind of warmth. And Annalise was very convinced that this was going to atone for the sins of others. Even Annalise's classmates would even recall and say that Annalise was very withdrawn and very religious. And speaking of class, when Annalise was 16 years old, she would actually suffer a seizure. And this first seizure in class would not get her parents' attention, but her classmates and her teachers would say that for a long period of time, Annalise would be in almost a trance-like state and just would not move, and then she would just quickly snap out of it, and she would just have no idea where she was. And a few days would go by, and the same thing would happen again at home. But on the second time, her parents would actually take her to the hospital, where doctors would actually diagnose her for having a temporal lobe epilepsy. Now, keep in mind, this form of epilepsy did more than cause seizures. It had also been known to cause hallucinations and just really give a person a really bad state of psychosis. And again, this is going to play a big part in the story. The doctors would give her medicine, and for the most part, at this time, it is said that the medicine was working, but as she got older, the medications that they were prescribing her was not working as well. And this would happen around the time that Annalise started attending college. And around this time, she was attending a college at the University of Wurzburg. And it said that the medicine that she was taking was not working, and it would really take a really hard toll, to the point that whenever she would see faces either in a church building or a religious building or just in class in general, Annalise would recall everyone as having a demonic or a very devil-like face. And it is also said around this time that Annalise started hearing voices, and these voices would tell her all the time that she was going to rot in hell. Around 1970, things would get so bad for Annalise that she would admit herself into a psychiatric hospital. And at this hospital, they would try to prescribe her medications to help her with her temporal lobe epilepsy and the other type of ailments that she was having, but the medications seemed to be helping. And at some point in 1970, she would actually suffer a third seizure. After this third seizure, Annalise would still have more convulsions and still be seeing more devil faces. The psychiatric hospital would even prescribe her more medications for her convulsions, but it did not alleviate any of the seizures. They would also give her other medications to help deal with the seeing the devil faces and different things like that, mostly for patients that have schizophrenia, but still they would have no hope in curing a lot of these problems that Annalise was having. And with the doctors not able to find what was wrong with Annalise, this would make Annalise become increasingly depressed and frustrated. It is also said that around this time, not only was she becoming frustrated with the hospital, that she was becoming completely intolerant of any kind of Christian sacred places or any Christian events whatsoever, even going as far as avoiding churches or crucifixes completely. She would eventually go with a family friend to Sam Dymo, where this is where her first meeting with Father Ernst Alt is at. And after that meeting, he would write a paper about Annalise. I'm going to show you his letter here. Pause to read. But Annalise's problems were just beginning.